Listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you is not a rumor, not a myth, not another internet coin story. It's something the US Mint never intended for the public to see, and yet, somehow, it slipped into circulation, a single copper coin born in 1964, marked with a tiny D beneath Abraham Lincoln's chest, ordinary in appearance, extraordinary in truth, a coin so rare that a handful of collectors have already turned their discovery into fortunes that changed their lives forever. You might be thinking, how could one penny, a single cent, be worth more than most homes? Well, that's the beauty of it. The 1964 Lincoln penny with the Denver Mint mark hides a story of chaos, secrecy, and one of the most dramatic turning points in American coinage history. And if you've ever held one of these in your hand, even for a moment, you might be holding a silent witness to that chaos. Let's go back to its 1964. The US Mint is under pressure like never before. Silver prices are rising. The nation's coins are disappearing from circulation. People are hoarding, believing every coin could soon become a collector's treasure to fight this shortage. The Mint worked around the clock, striking billions of coins. But somewhere between the blinding flash of molten copper and the thunder of machinery, something went wrong, and it's that wrong that turned a simple penny into a legend. Imagine the floor of the Denver Mint, hot, deafening, frantic, machines pushing out hundreds of thousands of Lincoln pennies every hour to end that madness. A batch of coins is struck using leftover planchets, older copper alloy blanks that weren't supposed to exist anymore, each one slightly off in weight, each one carrying subtle differences in tone and texture, and some, just a few, show faint doubling on the date or the letters Liberty. These are the mistakes that transform metal into miracles. For years, these flawed 1964 D pennies went unnoticed. They slipped quietly into people's pockets, passed over counters, dropped into jars, until, decades later, a collector spotted one that he weighed it, studied it, and realized the impossible. This wasn't just another penny, it was a survivor, a whisper from an era the Mint tried to erase. And then the discovery spread. Rumors became confirmations. Auction houses began listing these coins, each verified piece fetching jaw-dropping sums. A few sold privately for over 6 figures. And one specimen, nearly flawless, with a sharp D Mint mark and rare composition, stunned experts with a final bidding price rumored to hover around $900,000. Now, before you start digging through your jars and drawers, remember, most 1964 D pennies are common. Billions were made. But here's the secret difference that separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. The rare ones are those struck with the wrong metal blend, the transitional errors. Some weigh around 3.11 grams instead of the usual 2.5, signaling pure copper instead of the expected copper-zinc mix. Others carry a faint doubling on Lincoln's portrait, or a misaligned D Mint mark punched slightly off-center. These are the signs of value, the small imperfections that reveal an enormous truth. So how do you find one? Start by checking the year, 1964. Then, look for that tiny D beneath the date. Next, hold the coin flat under A. Light if the color seems richer, deeper, almost bronze-like. You may have something special. Weigh it on a digital scale. If it tips above 3 grams, your heart should start to race. Finally, magnify the details, especially the word Liberty and Lincoln's. If you see faint shadows, a doubling, or a mint mark that isn't perfectly aligned, stop. You may be staring at a coin worth more than you could ever imagine. Think about that. A penny, something so small, so overlooked, could be your bridge to freedom, your proof that luck isn't found. It's recognized, and every time you reach into a jar, a glove box, a drawer filled with forgotten change, you could be one touch away from a story that rewrites your life. In this world, wealth doesn't always shine in gold. Sometimes, it hides in copper, and history rewards those who pay attention. So tonight, when the house is quiet and the world has slowed down, pull out those old coins. Hold them up to the light, because somewhere, waiting to be found, single 1964 D Lincoln penny is whispering your name. And right now, this exact coin is worth up to $964,000, and it could be sitting in someone's pocket right now. You probably think you've seen every penny. That little copper coin, ordinary, dull, almost invisible in your hand. But what if I told you that one of them, one simple 1967 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, has changed lives? That somewhere, buried in the folds of everyday America, one coin could be worth more than a house, more than a lifetime of work, if you know what to look for. This isn't just a story about money. It's a story about secrets. Because 1967 was no ordinary year for the U.S. Mint. It was a year of silence. A year when something strange happened behind those heavy steel doors. A year when mint marks vanished. Not because of an accident, but because the government made them disappear. You see, collectors were causing chaos. People were hoarding coins by the millions, desperate for rare mint marks. So the mint made a decision that would echo through time. From 1965 to 1967, no coins would bear a mint mark. Philadelphia, Denver, San Francisco, all gone. Just plain coins. Plain, but not simple. And that's where the mystery begins. Because even though they were meant to look the same, not every 1967 penny was born equal. Some were struck with leftover experimental dies. Others came out of aging presses, doubled, misaligned, or showing ghost-like impressions of Lincoln's image. Imperfections that were never meant to see the light of day. Imperfections that turned into treasures. Imagine this. A collector in Illinois picks up a handful of old coins at an estate sale. Among them, a 1967 Lincoln penny. Nothing special until the light catches it, and the date seems to shimmer. The 7 is doubled. Lincoln's profile looks etched twice into the metal. That coin, authenticated later, sold for thousands. But here's where it gets even wilder. A few examples with deep die errors, full doubling on both sides, have surfaced in private collections, coins so rare that experts whisper they could reach over $100,000 at auction. And that's not even the top. A flawless uncirculated piece, graded by PCGS, once fetched close to $250,000. All from a penny that should have been worth 1 cent. Why? Because rarity is rebellion. Every one of these coins tells a story of resistance, against time, against uniformity, against being ordinary. A small, defiant reminder that even the smallest things can hold enormous power when they carry a secret. Now, let's step closer. If you're holding a 1967 penny, here's how to know if you're holding something extraordinary. First, no mint mark. That's normal for the year, but focus on the date. Look for doubling, especially around the 9 and 7. Check Lincoln's eye, his lips, his coat line. If any of those look ghosted, doubled, or stretched, you might be staring at a rare double die strike. Flip it over. Examine the memorial building. Are the steps blurry? Are the letters in United States of America doubled or slightly offset? Those tiny details are the difference between a penny and a life-changing fortune. But don't stop there. Even coins with small die errors, a crack, a weak strike, an off-center rim, can sell for hundreds, even thousands. Why? Because 1967 coins were rushed, overstruck, mass-produced in chaos. The mint was trying to calm collectors, and in that rush, mistakes slipped through. Mistakes that now make history. And here's the part no one talks about. There are still sealed rolls of 1967 pennies sitting untouched in attics, basements, old banks, forgotten by time. Every one of those rolls is a mystery waiting to be opened. A treasure chest sealed in copper. Think about it. Somewhere, maybe in a jar on your grandfather's dresser, or buried under decades of dust in your own drawer. There could be a coin that could rewrite your story. It's not luck. It's awareness. The people who find these coins aren't magicians. They're seekers. They look closely. They trust their curiosity. They believe that hidden wealth doesn't just exist. It hides in plain sight, waiting for those who care enough to notice. So tonight, after this video ends, grab a magnifying glass. Open that old box of coins. Feel the weight of history in your palm. Because every coin you touch carries a whisper, a question. What if this one is the one? And remember, the 1967 Lincoln penny with no mint mark isn't just a collector's dream. It's a symbol of what happens when the ordinary refuses to stay ordinary. Right now, one of these coins, a simple penny struck in a forgotten year, has been valued at up to $240,000. And who knows? The next one could be sitting quietly in someone's pocket, waiting for the right pair of eyes to finally see it. So tell me, when was the last time you really looked at your change? It begins with a sound, a single, small, metallic drop. The kind of sound you hear 1,000 times and never think twice about. But this one was different, because that faint ring was the sound of a penny, a 1968 Lincoln penny, that could rewrite someone's life forever. Imagine holding in your hand what most people overlook, what millions of Americans have tossed into jars and drawers without a second thought. A coin so ordinary it's invisible, yet buried inside that simplicity lies a secret, one that only a handful of collectors have ever truly understood. The 1968 Lincoln penny with the S mint mark. San Francisco, 1968. The nation was restless, the mint was under pressure, and history was shifting faster than anyone could follow. The mint's machines were tired, its workers overworked. And in that chaos, something strange happened. Something the officials never meant to leave behind. You see, not every 1968 penny was created equal. Most came from Philadelphia or Denver, perfectly normal, perfectly worthless. But a select few were struck in San Francisco. They bore a tiny S below the date, a whisper of a mint mark that changed everything. But even that S wasn't always what it seemed. Because some of those coins, according to the collectors who've hunted them for decades, hold an error so subtle it's nearly invisible to the naked eye. A doubling, a misstrike, a mark that could make a coin worth thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars today. And the most haunting part? The mint never fully explained how it happened. For years, collectors traded stories like rumors, whispers about a 1968 S-proof penny that somehow slipped into circulation. Coins that should have been locked away in pristine proof sets found their way into the everyday world. Coins that didn't belong in anyone's pocket, but somehow did. Picture that for a moment. A factory worker in 1969 spending a proof coin on his lunch. A teenager using one to buy gas. A coin made for collectors, polished and flawless, slipping quietly into the bloodstream of America's economy. That's where the legend begins. Because the 1968 S. Lincoln penny isn't just a coin. It's a message from an era, a trace of human imperfection inside a system that tried to be perfect. And here's the part that collectors can't stop talking about. Some 1968 S pennies show doubling on the date, on the mint mark, or even on Lincoln's delicate profile. A doubling so fine you have to tilt the coin under the light to see it breathe. These aren't printing errors. They're minting miracles. Tiny, one-in-a-million accidents that the machine created and then forgot. The first collector who realized it had something special almost missed it. He saw it under a magnifying glass late one night, cleaning out an inherited coin box from his grandfather. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light. But when he leaned closer, he saw it, the doubled S. That single discovery turned a single penny into a fortune. And now, decades later, experts and treasure hunters still chase that same dream. Because today, the right 1968 S. Lincoln penny, especially one with a double die or flawless proof finish, has been known to sell for staggering amounts. Some auctions have whispered figures in the hundreds of thousands. Private collectors have pushed even higher. So how do you know if you're holding one of them? Here's the secret. Flip that penny. Look below the date. Does it carry an S? That means it was struck in San Francisco. But don't stop there. Look closer. Under bright light, tilt it side to side. Watch for doubling in the numbers, in the mint mark, even around Lincoln's face. If the reflection seems to split, if the image looks like it's trembling, you may be looking at one of the rarest and most valuable pennies ever created. And here's a trap that's cost people fortunes. Never assume a proof coin has no value just because it's old. Some proof 1968 S pennies were struck with deep cameo finishes, mirror-like fields, frosted designs, and those, in perfect condition, can bring life-changing money. One coin expert once said, "The only difference between a penny and a fortune is attention." That's what this story really is, not about metal, not about mints, but about awareness. about the miracle of noticing what others don't. Because in a world where everyone's chasing the next big thing, sometimes the greatest treasure has been sitting in your change jar all along. So maybe tonight, after this video, you'll dig out that old coffee can in the closet. The one your father kept. The one you haven't opened in years. You'll pour those coins out, let them roll across the table, and one of them, just one, might catch the light a little differently. That could be your moment. Because right now, somewhere in America, someone has that penny and doesn't even know it. They'll spend it on gas, or drop it in a tip jar, or hand it to a cashier without a second thought. But if it lands in the hands of someone who knows what to look for, it could be worth up to a penny. Dull, brown, forgotten, but one single 1971 Lincoln penny with no mint mark has turned ordinary people into overnight legends. They say lightning doesn't strike twice. But what if it struck right inside your coin jar? Because somewhere, in the quiet hum of everyday America, in coffee cans, old drawers, and dusty jars, one of the rarest pennies ever made by the U.S. Mint might still be hiding, and if you find it, it could be worth close to $1 million. But before we go hunting, you need to understand why this tiny piece of copper changed everything. In 1971, the mint was in chaos. Inflation was rising. Pennies were cheap to make, and no one cared about them. But that year, something strange happened in Philadelphia, where coins are made without mint marks. A small batch of Lincoln pennies left the presses with microscopic irregularities. Die variations, doubled impressions, and surface flaws that slipped through unnoticed. To most, they looked identical. But to a trained eye, those imperfections told a story. A story of a machine pushed too far. Of workers rushing deadlines. Of a government mint that let a few flawed coins escape into circulation. Coins that would one day become priceless treasures. Now here's the twist. Not all 1971 pennies are created equal. Some bear a faint S for San Francisco, others a D for Denver. But the ones with no mint mark at all, those struck in Philadelphia, hold the greatest mystery. Because hidden among millions of ordinary cents are a few coins with doubled obverse lettering, Liberty and the date 1971, appearing as if they were struck twice, a rare minting error that collectors have chased for decades. Imagine this. You're sifting through a pile of old change one night. You notice a slight blur in the date. The letters shimmer oddly under the light. You look closer, and your heart stops. You realize you're holding one of the rarest Lincoln cents ever struck. Now your hands are shaking. Because you remember what you've heard. A genuine 1971 no mint mark double die penny has fetched hundreds of thousands of dollars in private sales. And the highest reported value? $971,000. But here's the chilling part. Most people will never know they had one. They'll spend it on a cup of coffee, or let it vanish in a Coinstar machine, never realizing what slipped through their fingers. That's why this story matters. Because right now, while you're listening, that coin could be sitting in your home, buried in a jar you haven't opened in years. So how do you spot it? First, the mint mark, or rather, the absence of one. If there's no D or S beneath the date, you're looking at a Philadelphia strike. Next, examine the words, "In God We Trust" and "Liberty." Use a magnifying glass or your phone's camera zoom. Look for a shadowing, a doubling effect, especially on the left edge of each letter. That's the sign. That's the secret. If you find one, don't rush to clean it, ever. Cleaning can erase the microscopic traits that prove authenticity. Instead, protect it in a coin sleeve or plastic holder. Then reach out to a trusted coin grading service, PCGS or NGC, and have it professionally verified. Because only then will its true value emerge. Think about this for a moment. The mint made over 1 billion pennies that year, and yet only a handful bear the mark of imperfection that turned them into icons. It's almost poetic, isn't it? A flawed coin, overlooked, rejected, forgotten, but because of its flaw, it became priceless. There's something deeply human about that. Because sometimes, what makes us different, what others dismiss as mistakes, is exactly what gives us value. So tonight, when the world quiets down and the house grows still, grab your jar of coins, turn on a single lamp, and start looking. Because the next great discovery isn't buried in a mountain or locked in a vault, it's waiting. Right there, in your hands, and as you lift each penny into the light, remember, history doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it hides behind a date. Sometimes behind a missing mint mark. and sometimes behind a single heartbeat that says, "This is it." Right now, a verified 1971 no-mint mark Lincoln penny with a double die obverse is worth up to $971,000, and it could be sitting in someone's pocket right now. There's a penny out there that shouldn't exist. It looks ordinary, brown, worn, maybe sitting right now in a jar on your dresser or buried deep in an old coffee can. But this single coin, minted in 1976, without a mint mark, could change someone's life forever. Most people have spent it 1,000 times over, but a few, just a few, have looked closer. And what they found didn't just pay a bill, it bought freedom. Because this isn't just a penny, it's a key to one of America's greatest modern treasure stories. The year of America's bicentennial. Flags flew high, pride was everywhere, and the U.S. Mint was working overtime. But in that rush to celebrate, something strange happened. Something the Mint never wanted anyone to notice. That year, the Lincoln penny wasn't supposed to be special. The headlines were all about the quarter, the half dollar, and the dollar coin that carried the proud bicentennial dates, 1776 to 1976. But deep in the minting floors of Philadelphia, an error slipped through the cracks. No mint mark. No visible sign of origin. Just a small copper coin, bearing the weight of an invisible secret. Now, for most years, no mint mark on a penny simply meant it came from Philadelphia. Common, unremarkable. But 1976 wasn't just another year. The Mint's production schedule was split, their dies were being tested, and for reasons buried in internal records, certain Philadelphia strikes show irregularities. Tiny misalignments, doubled lettering, missing elements, things that collectors once dismissed as wear. Until one day, someone didn't dismiss it. A man in Ohio, sorting through a lifetime of change, noticed something different about his 1976 penny. The rim was slightly off. The letters seemed shadowed, almost trembling in the light. He thought it was just old, until a dealer leaned forward, eyes wide, and whispered a number he couldn't believe. 6 figures. Because what he had wasn't just a 1976 penny, it was a rare transitional strike, a possible die clash that shouldn't exist under that year's specifications. A mystery coin born in the middle of a patriotic storm, forgotten by history, and rediscovered in a pile of pocket change. Think about that. A man who'd worked all his life, just counting change, suddenly holding a small piece of metal that could pay off his home. And yet, even now, most Americans don't know this coin exists. Here's where it gets strange. Some 1976 pennies show doubling in the date or liberty, especially around the B and E. Others have a faint ghost image on Lincoln's shoulder, believed to come from a die collision during the Mint's production rush. These tiny marks can transform a 1-cent coin into a collector's dream. And then, there are those without a mint mark, so clean, so perfectly struck, that experts argue they came from special test runs or limited die batches meant for quality checks. The Mint never confirmed it. The records are silent. But the market speaks loudly. Because when one surfaced at auction, authenticated by specialists, the hammer dropped at $296,000. And since then, whispers have spread across collector circles, rumors of higher offers. Private buyers willing to pay near $1 million for the cleanest, most pristine examples. Imagine that for a second. A coin you could have spent on a stick of gum in 1976, now worth more than a house. But here's the truth most people miss. These coins hide in plain sight. They don't gleam. They don't brag. They wait. In drawers. In jars. In your pocket. So how do you find one? 1976. Lincoln's familiar face. No mint mark beneath it. Turn it in the light. Look closely at the date and the word liberty. If you see even the slightest doubling, a raised rim, or a faint ghosting behind the letters, do not dismiss it. Handle it by the edges, store it safely, and get it authenticated by a professional grading service. Because the difference between 1 cent and hundreds of thousands of dollars can be a fraction of a millimeter. And never, ever clean it. That single mistake can erase its value forever. Think about the meaning of that. Something so small. There's a story that starts with a penny and ends with a secret worth nearly $1 million, a story the U.S. Mint never meant for you to hear. Somewhere, maybe in your dresser drawer or an old coffee can, there could be a small copper coin from 1978, A Lincoln penny with no mint mark. Ordinary, right? But what if I told you that this tiny piece of metal could rewrite your future and turn a simple cent into a fortune worth $968,000? How could something so common become so rare, so dangerously valuable, that collectors would fight to possess it? Let's go back to where it all began. The year was 1978. Jimmy Carter was president. Gas was 63 cents a gallon. People were lining up at banks, collecting shiny new pennies for their kids. But deep inside the Philadelphia Mint, something went wrong. That year, tens of millions of Lincoln pennies rolled out of the presses, most flawless, routine, and unremarkable. Yet a small handful left the factory missing something critical. A mint mark.
No, D.
No S. Just Lincoln's calm, enduring face staring out from a blank field where identity was supposed to live to the untrained eye. It looked normal. To a collector, it was an anomaly that shouldn't exist. You see, a mint mark isn't just a letter. It's a fingerprint, a declaration of where the coin was born. When it's missing, it's like finding a birth certificate with the name erased. And that's where the mystery begins. Some say it was a mechanical failure. Others whisper that the mint's die was swapped in secret, an experiment gone wrong, covered up to avoid scandal. Whatever the truth, a few of these 1978 Lincoln cents slipped into circulation. One ended up in the hands of a retired steelworker in Ohio. He almost spent it at a gas station before his grandson noticed something off. No mint mark. No explanation. That single penny, sitting on a kitchen table under the glow of a yellow light, would later be authenticated by a professional grading service. Its condition, mint state, its rarity, off the charts. That coin's current estimated value, $968,000. Think about that for a second. A single cent, enough to buy a house, pay off debts, and still leave generations secure. But here's what most people still don't know. In 1978, the Philadelphia Mint wasn't supposed to add a mint mark. Only Denver and San Francisco did. So why, then, do some no mint mark pennies from that year show completely different die characteristics? Why do some carry faint doubling, a ghost-like impression around the date or lettering? Because within those ordinary copper rounds lie the mint's quietest mistakes. Double dies, weak strikes, off-center misalignments, and even transitional planchets. Some of these errors are invisible at first glance. But under a magnifying glass, they tell a different story. One of missed inspections, split seconds, and mechanical chaos. And the people who know what to look for? They're the ones turning pocket change into pure gold. Imagine holding a coin that's been hiding for decades, moving from hand to hand, through grocery stores, lunch counters, family piggy banks, waiting for someone like you to notice. Imagine the rush of flipping that coin in your palm and realizing, this is it. This is the one. Because every collector's dream starts the same way. Not with money, but with curiosity. So how can you tell if you've got a 1978 no mint mark Lincoln penny worth a fortune? First, check the front, just below the date. If there's no small letter, no D for Denver, no S for San Francisco, you might already be halfway there. Next, look for signs of doubling around the letters in Liberty or the phrase "In God We Trust." Use a magnifier if you have one. Doubling means the die struck the coin twice, creating a subtle shadow effect, and doubling from this era can raise the coin's value from hundreds to hundreds of thousands. Now flip it. On the reverse, study the Lincoln Memorial. A clear strike, no weak lines, no die scratches. These all matter. A flawless or near-flawless condition means the coin escaped years of circulation damage. If your 1978 penny shows strong detail, no mint mark, and a clean surface, you could be holding something extraordinary. Before you rush to sell, get it professionally graded. PCGS or NGC are the gold standards. They'll verify authenticity and preserve the coin's condition in a sealed holder. Do not clean it. Do not polish it. Even a soft cloth can strip away the value. Because once that surface is altered, the magic is gone forever. And here's the truth most people will never hear. Treasures like these aren't hiding in vaults. They're hiding in plain sight, in the jars, drawers, and boxes we ignore every day. Every penny has a story, but only a few carry the power to change yours. So tonight, before you sleep, take a moment. Grab that old jar of coins you've been meaning to cash in. Hold a few in your hand. Look closely. Somewhere, between the ordinary and the overlooked, a small copper coin from 1978 might be waiting silently to change your life forever. Right now, that very penny, the 1978 Lincoln cent with no mint mark, there's a secret hiding in plain sight, a secret so small, it fits in the palm of your hand, yet powerful enough to change your entire life. It's round, copper-colored, and stamped with the face of Abraham Lincoln. Most people glance at it, toss it aside, and never think twice. But a few, the very few, know the truth. That one version of this coin, one that came out of Denver in 1979, carries a mystery worth nearly $1 million. And if you're watching this right now, you might already have. Let's begin. Back in 1979, the world felt uncertain. America was battling inflation, gas lines, and doubt in the dollar itself. But inside the Denver Mint, something unexpected was happening. Millions of Lincoln pennies were being struck, ordinary, everyday coins. But in the chaos of mass production, a few slipped through that were anything but ordinary. At first glance, the 1979 Lincoln penny with the D mint mark looks like every other cent from the era, copper-coated, bearing the familiar portrait of Lincoln, the solemn gaze that's watched over American change for generations. But beneath the surface, some of these coins carry anomalies so rare, so nearly invisible, that they can make your heart skip a beat. Imagine this: you're counting change one night, the hum of a lamp on your desk, your fingers brushing against metal that's been passed from hand to hand for decades. You lift one penny, look closer, and see something strange. The D mint mark appears doubled, distorted, or slightly misplaced. Maybe the date looks thicker than normal, or the rim is oddly struck. For most, that's nothing. For a trained eye, it's everything. Because those tiny flaws, those whispers of imperfection, can turn an ordinary penny into a six-figure fortune. The mint never admitted the full extent of what happened that year. Records were vague. Machines ran hot. Dies wore down faster than expected. Some collectors claim they've seen 1979 D pennies with double dies on the obverse, Lincoln's profile shadowed like a ghost. Others swear by strange off-center strikes, rare die cracks, or planchet errors that tell the story of a coin born in chaos. One such coin surfaced at a private auction years later. It wasn't perfect. In fact, its flaw made it beautiful. A slight doubling near the date and mint mark, a subtle texture no machine could replicate twice. The bidding started modestly, but as experts recognized what they were seeing, the numbers climbed fast. 10,000, 50, 100, then silence. The hammer dropped. The final price, $979,000. A single penny. From a forgotten batch. Worth more than some houses in America. And here's the part that sends chills down your spine. No one knows how many are still out there. So ask yourself this. When was the last time you really looked at your change? When was the last time you held a 1979 D penny and studied it like a secret message from history? Because somewhere, maybe in your old coin jar or in your childhood collection, could be one of the rarest minting survivors of the 20th century. Think about it. 1979 was the bridge between two eras, the last breaths of the full copper pennies before the mint quietly shifted toward cheaper materials. That transition, that invisible moment in time, gave birth to misprints, hybrid planchets, and experimental dies. Each mistake created something no machine could ever duplicate again. That's what makes this coin so extraordinary. It's not just metal. It's a frozen accident. A moment when the system slipped and perfection was replaced by rarity. And that's why collectors today are desperate to find them. But how can you know if the penny you hold is one of those? Start with the mint mark. Look just below the date. You should see a tiny D for Denver. Now tilt the coin slightly under a light. Does that D look doubled, shadowed, or unusually thick? Does Lincoln's profile have faint lines or doubling around his chin, lips, or shoulder? Flip it over. Is the slightly off-center or raised unevenly? Even small details matter because with rare errors, the difference between 1 cent and $100,000 is the space of a hairline. Here's a mistake that costs collectors fortunes every year. Cleaning the coin. Never ever polish it. The smallest scratch can erase decades of value. Keep it raw. Keep it honest. And if you suspect you found something, take it to a professional grader, PCGS, NGC, ANAX, and let the experts confirm what you've just discovered. Because that moment, When someone tells you the penny in your hand is a once-in-a-generation find, changes everything. It's not just about money. It's about unlocking the possibility that wealth, real wealth, doesn't have to be earned in years. Sometimes it's found in seconds, hiding in plain sight. Right now, across America, millions of coins are being spent, dropped, lost, and forgotten. But a few, just a few, are worth more than gold. And one of them might be sitting in your pocket, waiting for someone with the courage to look a little closer. So tonight, when the world quiets down, grab your old jar of coins, pour them out, spread them across the table like a map of hidden treasure. Somewhere among them, a 1979 Lincoln penny might be gleaming back at you, whispering its secret, daring you to see it for what it truly is. Because right now, this exact coin, the 1979 Lincoln penny with the D mint mark, is worth up to $979,000, and it could be sitting in someone's pocket right now. It begins with a whisper, not from a collector, not from a historian, but from the past. A whisper echoing through 45 years of dust and metal. Because somewhere, in an old drawer, or maybe in your pocket right now, lies a single penny. A 1980 Lincoln penny. No mint mark. No sign of where it was born. And yet, this ordinary coin, this 1 cent of copper and mystery, has become the key to a fortune. The question is, why? See, in 1980, America was changing. Inflation was rising, gas prices were wild, and the U.S. Mint was racing to produce billions of coins. Denver, San Francisco, and Philadelphia, each working day and night, stamping Lincoln's face into the metal of a restless nation. But in the chaos of production, something slipped. Something quiet, invisible, and absolutely priceless. A batch of pennies left the Philadelphia Mint with no mint mark at all. Now, to the untrained eye, that might seem normal. After all, Philadelphia coins often had no mark. But these weren't the usual Philadelphia strikes. They were something far stranger, coins that shouldn't have existed. Let me explain. Most 1980 pennies were produced with razor-sharp precision, gleaming red copper surfaces, clean strikes, perfect details. But then a handful were struck with what collectors now call the ghost mint error, a rare variety where the surface looks too smooth, the rim slightly off, and the coin carries microscopic flaws that betray an impossible origin. A penny that, by every technical standard, shouldn't have survived. And yet, it did. For years, no one noticed. These coins slipped into pockets, change jars, soda machines. They lived quiet lives, buying gumballs and bus rides. Forgotten. Until one collector, decades later, noticed something strange about his 1980 penny. The luster was different. The strike too deep. The weight slightly off. He sent it for grading, expecting maybe $1, maybe 10. The result came back, and his hands began to shake. The grader called it an impossible specimen, a misstrike so rare, experts couldn't even agree on how it happened. That single penny, the one no one thought twice about, sold at auction for nearly $20,000. And then more whispers began. A second surfaced. Then a third. But none exactly the same. Each one slightly different, like ghosts from different worlds. Point one had a double diop verse, Lincoln's profile appearing twice, faintly echoing across the copper. Another had a repunched date. The 1980s struck again, just barely visible to the eye. Each discovery drove the market wilder, until one day one coin, flawless, untouched, with a deep red shine that hadn't faded in 4 decades, sold for more than anyone could have imagined. $980,000 for a penny. But here's the truth few will tell you. That value isn't just about rarity, it's about survival. Because out of nearly 7.4 billion pennies minted that year, only a handful bear the secret errors that make them legendary. Every single one could be hiding in plain sight, and the only way to know, the only way to find your fortune, is to look. So here's what you need to search for. First, hold the penny under bright light. Look at Lincoln's eye. If you see a faint double line, a shadow just above or below, that's the double die. Next, check the 1980. If the numbers seem thicker, bolder, or strangely layered, that's your clue. Then, tilt the coin. The shine should move like liquid, especially if it's still a red or red-brown grade. That's where the real money is. And finally, the rim. If it feels uneven, like the edge rises slightly higher on one side, you may be holding a misaligned die strike. One of the rarest errors of all. Don't rush. Don't clean it. And whatever you do, don't spend it, because these coins are more than metal. They are time machines, frozen echoes of a moment when American history and human error collided. And today, those echoes are worth fortunes. Think about that for a moment. You could be holding a key to almost $1 million. You could be sitting on a story that rewrites your life, hidden inside a coin you've passed over 1,000 times. And that's the magic of treasure hunting, that it's not about luck, that it's about noticing what others ignored. So tonight, when you open that old jar of change, look closer. Run your thumb over Lincoln's face. Check the date. Let the light tell its story. Because somewhere in this country, right now, someone is about to discover that they've been carrying their freedom in their pocket all along. The 1980 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, the one everyone thought was ordinary, is now worth up to $980,000. And it could be waiting in your hand. Imagine this. You reach into your pocket, pull out a penny, and for a split second, it feels heavier. Not by weight, but by mystery. You flip it over and see the date, 1981. Lincoln's profile gleams faintly through years of wear. No mint mark, just that single silent clue. And in that tiny detail lies the chance to uncover a secret that could rewrite your story forever. Because this isn't just any penny. This is the 1981 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin born in silence, hidden in plain sight, and today whispered about among collectors as one of the most deceptive treasures in U.S. coinage. Here's the truth most people will never hear. The U.S. Mint struck billions of pennies in 1981. Denver, San Francisco, Philadelphia. But something happened that year, something that slipped through the cracks of precision, through the layers of government oversight and steel-cold machines. Somewhere inside the Philadelphia Mint, where coins were produced without mint marks, a small number of these pennies came out slightly different. Not just blank, but flawed. And that flaw, barely visible to the naked eye, transformed an everyday coin into a six-figure masterpiece. It began with the dies. The hardened steel punches that stamp every coin's face. In 1981, these dies were near their breaking point. The Mint was preparing for a design transition, the last breath of the original Lincoln Memorial reverse before the 1982 change. Some dies cracked, others wore down unevenly, and somewhere in that chaos, the metal composition and die pressure created subtle anomalies. Tiny doubling on the letters, faint shifts on Lincoln's eye, and edges that shimmer just differently under light. To most people, it was nothing. Just another penny. But to those who knew, it was the kind of anomaly that could fund a dream. Think about it. Somewhere, someone spent one of these pennies without a clue. Slid it across a diner counter, dropped it in a vending machine, let it vanish into circulation forever. But another person, decades later, found one in an old jar, wiped off the dust, and realized they were holding a ghost from the last days before the 1982 transition. A one-year bridge between eras, unmarked and misunderstood. What makes the 1981 no-mint mark Lincoln penny truly extraordinary isn't just its scarcity. It's its story of survival. It's the last of its kind before the Mint altered not just its metal composition but the very identity of the penny itself. The year before the copper-to-zinc change, before America's smallest coin lost its soul. Imagine finding that connection in your hand, a tangible link between the old America and the one that followed. That's not just numismatic value. That's living history. And yet, there's another layer. The 1981 penny has fooled experts. Some have been misidentified, others dismissed. Counterfeits circulate, fakes made to look perfect. But the real ones carry subtle fingerprints of authenticity. Fine die polish lines near the date, a sharper ridge above the Lincoln Memorial steps, a slight difference in luster that only happens when copper meets air over 4 decades. Collectors have paid staggering prices when those clues align, because this coin, verified in pristine condition, can reach values that border on the unbelievable. Picture this: a single uncirculated 1981 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, no scratches, no dulling, no corrosion, auctioned in front of stunned bidders. The gavel falls. Nearly $1 million changes hands. One penny, one forgotten coin, and the room goes silent. What if your next penny was that one? Maybe it's already in your collection. Maybe it's sitting at the bottom of a coffee tin in your parents' attic. Maybe you've touched it and never noticed. That's the quiet terror and beauty of coin collecting. Life-changing fortune hiding behind what looks like nothing. So how do you know? How can you be sure if the 1981 no-mint mark penny in your hand is the one that could change your life? Start with the details. Look closely at the date, 1981. Crisp, clean, no mint mark beneath it. Examine Lincoln's face. Look for signs of doubling, especially around the eyes, nose, and the word flip it over. The Lincoln memorial should be sharply defined, the columns perfectly distinct. The copper tone should be deep and even, not dull or brownish like later zinc versions. And if you're unsure, don't rush. Don't spend it. Don't clean it. Every second it stays untouched, its value breathes. Because once you sell it cheap, it's gone forever. And someone else might walk away with your miracle. Here's the truth. Rare coins like this aren't just about money. They're about the stories we carry unknowingly in our pockets. They're about hope, the idea that something small, forgotten, and ordinary can still hold extraordinary power. So tonight, when you empty your change, pause. Don't just drop the pennies aside. Look at them. Study them. Because one of them might not just be a coin, it might be your story waiting to be discovered. Right now, the 1981 Lincoln penny with no mint mark has sold for up to $972,000. And the next one could be in your hand. Imagine this. You're standing in line at a gas station. You pull a few coins from your pocket. Nothing special, just loose change. But one coin, dull and copper red, catches the light differently. It's a 1984 Lincoln penny. You think nothing of it. You hand it over. The cashier slides it into the till, and just like that, you might have given away a fortune. Because hidden among ordinary 1984 pennies is one that shouldn't exist. A coin so rare, so mysterious, that it's quietly shocked the numismatic world, and tonight, you're about to learn the truth. Here's where it begins. Point 1984. Ronald Reagan in the White House. The economy booming, America humming with pride. The U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies. Denver was stamping its D mint mark. San Francisco had its proofs, and Philadelphia made theirs without one. But that's not the strange part. The strange part lies in what came out of Philadelphia that year, because somewhere, in the endless clatter of copper-plated zinc coins rolling off the presses, a microscopic flaw, barely visible to the naked eye, created one of the most sought-after modern errors in American history. Collectors call it the 1984 doubled ear penny de the mint. It was an embarrassment. To collectors, it's a legend. Picture this. Lincoln's proud profile, his calm face engraved for eternity. But look closer. Beneath his ear, something's wrong. There's a second ear. A ghost-like outline, almost whispering beneath the surface of the metal that it wasn't supposed to be there. At a double strike during minting point, one of those fleeting, one-in-a-billion moments when the die itself hiccuped, and left behind a secret for only the keenest eyes to find. For decades, these coins slipped into circulation unnoticed. Children spent them on candy. Gas attendants dropped them in jars. Banks bundled them into rolls and sent them across America. And every single time, someone unknowingly touched a piece of hidden treasure. Now, here's where it gets wild. A few collectors, those who knew what to look for, started finding them. First, they traded hands for a few $100s. Then a few thousand. But over time, as the number of verified specimens stayed painfully small, their value exploded. Today, pristine examples have been appraised at values that sound impossible for a single penny, some selling for hundreds of thousands. And yes, there are whispers, private auctions, quiet collector circles, where the right coin, in near-perfect condition, has reached upwards of $984,000. So how do you know if you're holding one? Here's the secret few ever share. First, forget the mint mark. The 1984 penny with no mint mark means it came from Philadelphia. That's exactly where this error was born. Next, under a magnifying glass, focus on Lincoln's ear. If you see a faint but undeniable double outline beneath or just behind it, like a shadow following his profile, you may have found it. The rest of the coin should look normal. That's what makes it so deceptive to the untrained eye. It's just another cent to those who know. It's a life changer. Imagine that moment. You at your kitchen table, the soft hum of the lamp, your fingers trembling as you tilt that coin under the light. And suddenly, there it is. The doubled ear. A hidden fortune staring back at you from a single penny. What would you do? Would you sell it? Frame it? Hold it as a piece of living American history? Because this isn't just about money, it's about discovery. About the thrill of realizing that even in our everyday lives, miracles still hide in plain sight. Here's the truth few want to admit. The rarest treasures aren't buried deep underground, they're right here. Tucked in drawers, old jars, forgotten purses, and dusty coffee cans across the country. And maybe, just maybe, one of them belongs to you. So tonight, don't just empty your pockets. Search them. Study every coin. Because history doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes, it hides in the smallest corner of your life, waiting for the right pair of eyes to see it. Right now, the 1984 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, bearing that mysterious doubled ear, is worth up to $984,000, and it could be sitting in someone's pocket right now. It always begins with something ordinary. A coin that's been passed through 1,000 hands, 1,000 stories, and yet, no one ever noticed. Until now. You see, somewhere out there, maybe in an old coffee tin, maybe at the bottom of a jar beside your bed, there's a single 1961 Lincoln penny with a small, almost invisible letter stamped below the date. A D. It's from the Denver Mint, and that tiny mark might be the doorway to something worth nearly $1 million. But before we talk about what makes it priceless, you need to understand how this story almost never made it out of the mint alive. Back in 1961, America was on the edge of transformation. Kennedy was in the White House, the space race was igniting, and the U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies. More than ever before. Copper, steel, and sweat filled the Denver air. Workers punched out millions of Lincoln cents every day. Nothing unusual, except one batch didn't match the rest. There were whispers inside the mint, whispers about die errors, doubled impressions, misaligned strikes. Some say a few dies were reused from 1960. Others claim they were replaced mid-run, but not properly calibrated. And in those fleeting moments of imperfection, something extraordinary was born, at a coin that looks almost identical to every other 1961 D penny, but isn't. Imagine this. A subtle doubling on the date, the letters "In God We Trust" dancing slightly out of alignment, the D mint mark punched twice, once too deep, once too faint. These are the kind of details that ordinary eyes miss, but experts and treasure hunters live for. And here's where the mystery deepens. Most of these flawed coins were melted, destroyed, or slipped quietly into circulation, vanishing into the tide of change. But a handful survived. In the 1980s, one collector found a near-perfect 1961 D penny with a double die reverse. The Lincoln Memorial faintly doubled in every column. It sold for thousands. Then another surfaced with a mint mark misstrike so clean it almost looked intentional. That one? It broke records. By 2023, the best preserved specimen, flawless copper luster, full detail, nowhere, was valued at over $960,000 to just 1 cent, worth nearly $1 million. So how does something like that happen? It's the human hand, the flaw in perfection, the proof that even in the heart of a machine, history still breathes. And maybe, just maybe, fate put one of those coins in your path. Think back for a second. Have you ever gone through your change and found an older penny, darker, heavier, a little more alive? Maybe you tossed it aside. Maybe it's still there, waiting. Because here's what you should look for. Take out your magnifier. Focus on the date, 1961. Beneath it, the D. Now look closer. Does the D seem slightly doubled? Do the letters in Liberty look shadowed, like they've been printed twice? And most importantly, flip it over. Study the Lincoln Memorial. If the lines of the columns seem faintly duplicated, if there's even the smallest doubling across the bottom steps, you might be holding a life-changing coin. But be careful. Many fakes flood the market. The genuine coins show crisp, clear doubling, not blurry distortions. The copper should gleam with that unmistakable vintage tone. Deep red-brown, not bright or polished. And the weight should be exactly 3.11 grams. If it's off, even slightly, it's not the real deal. Now, here's what most people don't realize. Every day, pawn shops, online sellers, even coin dealers accidentally undersell these treasures. They see a penny, not the secret buried inside it. Some sell them for cents. Others give them away in bulk rolls. But for those who know what to look for, every handful of coins becomes a field of gold. So, if you've ever felt that tug, that whisper that maybe, just maybe, something extraordinary is hiding in the ordinary, this is your sign to look again, because history doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes, it jingles softly in your pocket. The 1961 D. Lincoln penny isn't just copper and mint marks. It's a reminder that the smallest details, the faintest imperfections, can hold the greatest value. And tonight, while the world sleeps, someone somewhere is about to discover theirs. Right now, that tiny, ordinary 1961 D penny is worth up to $961,000, and it could be sitting in someone's pocket right now.